Welcome, welcome. If you guys are new to the show, I'm so excited because today you're going to get to meet an amazing guest. On today's show, we're going to be talking about the future of travel in a post-COVID-19 world. And we're going to talk about consumer trends and how the travel industry should prepare for what is coming right now. So let's get started. A big welcome to our guest today, Konrad Waliszewski, the CEO and co-founder of Trip Scout, is joining us. Just a quick intro on Konrad. His app was ranked the #1 travel app to plan your trip, and he's visited approximately 100 countries, and Forbes called him the modern day Marco Polo, which I just think is so fabulous. He's positioned at the intersection of consumer trends and travel tech, and Konrad is a regular speaker and thought leader about the future of travel. And by the way, guys, if you're listening to this on our podcast, I want to remind you, you can find us over on Roku on the Raven International Network and on YouTube. Or if you're watching us and you prefer podcasts, you can find us on Spotify, iTunes, and iHeart, all the places. But Konrad, welcome. There's never been a better time to talk about the future of travel than right now.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, a lot is changing, but it's a crazy time and an uncertain time, but also an incredible opportunity for people in the travel industry.
Absolutely. So my operations manager, how we kind of met virtually, is my operations manager. We're always following travel blogs and all kinds of fun articles. And she sent me your recent blog article, Travel Will Come Back, but it will look very different. And you were discussing your thoughts and your predictions in this post or in COVID right now, and then post-COVID, what it will look like. And I just loved it. One of the things you talked about was OTAs, online travel agencies, the big guys like Expedia, Priceline, all of those ones that are kind of the big box, like booking millions of trips every single year. Talk to me about how you think the OTAs were impacted through COVID.
Yeah, so I mean, first off, the one thing to recognize, and I think what a lot of people get wrong about these times, is the desire to go travel and to go explore has not decreased at all. And if anything, it's even been heightened because you've been quarantined in your house for a long time. So if you actually look at a lot of the data, Airbnb did more bookings in the past month than they did the year before. Like, people are already, for good or bad, I'm not an epidemiologist, I don't want to comment on the virus, but for good or for bad, people are getting back to it and they're already traveling, but they're doing it very differently and they're doing it much more responsibly. They're not getting on a plane and going to Paris or London like they did before, but they are going on road trips, renting cabins. They are, going camping. Like, if you try to book a campsite in a nice national park or state park, it's probably too late. It's already booked up. So yeah, it's going to look very differently. And so from the perspective of the OTAs, like, the OTAs are getting hit significantly because a lot of that type of travel is shifting. Now, some of the OTAs have apartment rentals, but a lot of people are shifting to campsites and apartments through Airbnb. So that's hurting them. And I think the biggest thing is there was so much uncertainty and so much hassle and pain trying to cancel the trips that a lot more people are gonna book directly. So, I had personally, for, just to use myself as an anecdote, like, I booked through Chase, through Points, through, Expedia. And after that, like, do I think I'm gonna go book through the airline next time or the hotel, or am I gonna book through the OTA? And it's actually, there's some interesting trends because the hotels and the suppliers have really been frustrated with the OTAs. They kind of hate the OTAs because OTAs take, 30% commissions on hotels. So they've long been looking for a way to sort of shift that power dynamic. And I think now is just that, perhaps some of that opportunity. You already see Marriott, not giving you Bonvoy points if you book through an OTA. So yeah. I think people are going to, a lot of the hotels and a lot of the industry is going to use this pandemic as a way to accelerate probably what would have inevitably happened, but now they can do it through COVID. And I think the customer is going to be much more, hesitant to book through someone. They want to go through one person so they can get, a guaranteed refund or change when another pandemic hits.
I love that. And we saw, from our perspective, of course, travel, the question we always get, which I love from consumers, are travel agents even a thing? And I think it was so powerful what happened through this process is, yes, we were actually doing really, really well. Savvy clients have been they never stopped using us, right? But what happened that was so key during COVID was we had perfect strangers calling the agency going, oh my gosh, can you help me? Like, they're telling me I can't cancel, I can't change unless I'm traveling within 72 hours. And by the way, I had to wait 7 hours on the phone to get through. Like in that first month that everything was going on, they shut their phones off. And so other clients were taking to social media going, oh, well, I use a travel agent, so she or he took care of it for me, right? So I love the articles coming out from Forbes and USA Today and Travel Weekly that are basically like, why aren't you have a travel agent on speed dial now more than ever, right? In terms of that whole piece. So yeah, I think with the OTAs, I feel like they're at least the reputation from a customer service perspective is a little tarnished, right? Like, are you going to go through that pain and suffering again of having that potentially bad customer service? And then from, like what you were saying is the suppliers actually going, look, we don't want to give this much commission away. What's the happy medium? And it's the original model of the travel agent.
Well, it's really interesting. So I will say in full admission, as someone who is a millennial, very tech focused traveler, when I was on my, traveling, to 100 countries, as you mentioned, and working in the technology industry, and I got into the travel industry from not just a, creator and a blogger and a traveler, but actually running a business. My first instinct was, do travel agents still exist? And one of the things we did when we launched Trip Scout, which was pretty nuts, but was pretty pivotal for us, is we gave our personal cell phone number to the first 250,000 people who signed up.
Wow.
And we said, anytime you're going on a trip, text us, call us, email us, we're here to help, whether you're on a trip, coming back from a trip, about to go on a trip. And we just wanted to learn as much as we could about the psychology and the behavior of the modern traveler. And we just, we had so many questions, and it blew my mind. Lots of people use travel agents, and travel agents have been an industry that's actually been growing. And so that was the first premise, is that I think most people don't realize that, even pre-COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And then post-COVID, or during COVID, uncertainty and changing information is going to be one of the number one drivers of how people evaluate their trip. I mean, pre-COVID, the trends were, you get a flight alert from Scotch Cheap Flights, you just book it, you think later. Most people really enjoy the trip planning process, so they don't want someone else to do it for them. They like to look for deals. They like to read a bunch of blogs, what to do. So, you just didn't have to think about it. You just booked, and you could figure it out as you went. And there's a lot of trends I can unpack about how that shifted. But now, to your point, airlines were playing chicken with you. So you had to wait till they didn't want to cancel. They wanted you to cancel, because when you cancel, you're not entitled to a refund. So they're waiting to the last minute. And then, you call and the phones are down, or they're too busy, and or you wait for hours, and then you get disconnected. So I think there's going to be a lot more people who just say, you know what? I want someone to tell me if there's a change in the country's regulation. Mm-hmm. Someone who lives and breathes this stuff every day. 2, I want someone to I want to text someone, cancel my flight, and have them do it. 3, I want to I don't know, where can I go? Someone like me reads everything that comes out, but most people aren't like that.
Most people don't want a full-time job, a second job, right?
And so I think people are going to rely a lot more on travel agents. And I think and that's going to transfer to the suppliers as well. The model that Southwest had, where it was just look, you're going to change your flight, just go online, change it. We don't ask you questions, you get credit. Yep. Everyone's going to do that, or they're not going to be relevant. Flexibility, optionality, and confidence in the midst of uncertainty is what everyone will be the default. And so I think travel agents have a real place in helping people figure that out. I think they also have a real place in helping people figure out what they can and cannot do, both to like make sure you're being a good citizen for the world, and not doing something or going somewhere you shouldn't go, but also to let you know where you can go and what you can do and that kind of stuff. So yeah.
I totally agree. The amount of changes right now is ridiculous. Like we just did a deep dive into Disney last week and we were doing some update videos, and every day like dates are pushing, this is changing, this attraction's not open, just a small one little supplier, right? And take that and times it by the hundreds and hundreds of suppliers that we're dealing with. It's insane right now, right? Like even it's someone who's done this 25 years, it's like, wow, there's a lot of moving parts. And every day, like you said, it's the flight alerts, this and that, and everything is very fluid right now. So making sure that you're on top of that is, it's like a whole second job.
I will say too, that like, obviously like the human element of what's going on is the most important. But like what we can control in our own little bubbles and our own businesses is the fact that this is going to sound very counterintuitive, but right now is the best opportunity the travel industry has ever had, maybe since the .com boom. The way, ever since the .com, you had essentially a couple powerhouses who own everything. Most people don't realize that pretty much everything funnels either into the Booking.com Priceline Holdings or Expedia. They own everything. They spend Priceline / Booking and Expedia both spend $4 billion a year on marketing. Like, it was hard to break through the noise. Everyone loved travel. Everyone talked about travel. Now all of those companies are, in crisis. Their marketing budgets are cut. Employees are furloughed or decreased. Like, and 10 years, and I think this is happening across all technology, or just business in general, 10 years of innovation is going to happen in the next 1 or 2. And you already see how, like, everyone, even though most of the world used Amazon, now everyone has to go on Amazon or Instacart or DoorDash or Grubhub, or Zoom, so I think for the people who are willing to like be bold, get out there, share their voice, share valuable information that helps people, it's gonna be a really good time for that. I mean, we saw in our moment, like we launched this travel from home initiative, and I started creating a lot more Facebook video, like reflecting on the lessons I learned from the different 100 countries that I've been to, and the engagement and the audience we were able to grow and the time we were able to grow it was insane. Like we would have never been able to do that when everyone's busy at work and busy traveling, but like people are kind of lonely and kind of bored. And so, it's good to remember that.
The cabin fever is setting in for sure. So no, and I love what you said, because there really is a huge opportunity now if people know how to reach that new market share, like the millennials and the online bookers. And that's, but those segments, those consumers don't just want to work with anybody, and they have a certain pattern in which they buy. So my question for you is, how do travel agents, travel advisors, travel agencies prepare or best serve those types of clients in this new world that we're going into, right? Because you can't just put on a hat and go, I'm a travel agent today, and I think I'm going to go and get all these clients. What do travel agents need to adjust or do differently to reach that market share?
A great question. I think the thing that has to come first is, how do you give? Like, how do you give valuable information? How do you share things that are valuable? I think too many people look at marketing as, how can I go get what I want?
Right.
And obviously you have things that you want, but if you come at it and said, who is my community? Because not every, like, if you just try to say travel, there are very different types of travelers. So I would, know the type of travel that that you love, that you focus on, and say, how can I add value to this world? Like, how can I create content? I care about this. I'm reading everything that comes out. So how can I just curate that and distill that and give valuable bite-sized information to give people what they need to know? And, you know, every time you give, like, you know, if it's genuine, people tend to listen more. And when then they have a question, they go to you. And I think, you know, people too often just try to like keep things close to the chest, but we live in a world where you just have to put yourself out there. And when you learn stuff, share it with other people. And, you know, to be even more tactical, like video is the most important thing. Like I resisted it for a while because I love photography and I love like thinking and processing, and I love being in a moment when I travel. And then afterwards, when I'm sitting on a train or a plane, I like to be like, what did I learn? And I write that down and I, you know, edit a photo. But, you know, it's just the way the world is going is like people wanna see faces, hear voices, and they want an unedited authenticity. And so yeah, I think just getting in that habit, not overthinking it, and just putting yourself out there is probably the best thing you can be doing right now if you're a travel agent.
I agree. I think authenticity is so key. We've been training that for years, you know, and being able to reach out to that consumer. And like my husband started using YouTube, I feel like before everybody. And I was like, what are you doing? Like you're married to like this veteran, you know, travel entrepreneur, right? I just ask me. And he's all like, I need to see the scoop from the street, right? I want to hear it from, like you said, an unedited source. And that video is such a unique opportunity to bond and connect with people through that medium in an authentic way, because you're sharing what you love and what you care about. I think that's really key. And I think another factor to really, you know, getting into that marketplace, and you even mentioned it in earlier in one of the questions that I asked, you said, you know, I was that person who I like to plan my own stuff and people like to do their own thing. The perfect marriage is not taking away the planning process from the client, right? It's a collaborative approach and understanding. Like, yes, in 1984, 1990, yes, you were doing everything. But in today's environment, what people want is they want that collaboration, but they don't want the stress. So I think if advisors and agents and agency owners can embrace that in how they communicate their message, that working with me is not that I'm taking something away from you. It's that, hey, we are taking something away, the stress, the chaos, the calling, all this crap you don't want to do. And now you just get to talk about what you want to do and we make it happen. I think that's, you know, just another vehicle in terms of reaching this. I know that's how our agency's doing it. We have an agency too, but it's been successful for us for years before COVID started. And now I think we're in that same place.
100%. You know, one of the number one insights that we got from giving our phone number to 250,000 people was that the average traveler spends 30 hours planning each trip.
Oh yeah.
And most of, you know, and we meet with all the OTAs, all the airlines, like we know everyone in the industry. Everyone we talked to saw that as a pain point. And they always approached it with, how do we make 30 hours, 30 minutes, 30 seconds? How do we use like technology and automation just to do things for them? But what we realized from having these conversations is 95% of those 30 hours were highly enjoyable. They were an extension of the trip. It's like, there's actually some psychological studies that have proved that the planning and anticipation of a trip actually creates more joy than the trip itself sometimes. You know, like you live in a fantasy when you're planning. When you're actually on a trip, like things go wrong, you get sick, like all that stuff. And so we took the counterintuitive approach, and like, you know, when we raised our first round of venture capital, like we went out there and said, everyone's trying to make 30 hours to 30 seconds. We're going to make 30 hours, 60 hours by making it way more entertaining, engaging, bingeable, and by like then solving some of the hard problems. Now we're doing it with technology. You guys are doing it through service, but take away some of the hard stuff.
Yeah.
But like, you know, I would even like, if you Google, and this is a lot of what our app does. So like travel agents can like use this to help support their customers. They don't have to even tell them. Like, absolutely. If you Google things to do in X city, you're going to get the like most boring, cliche, like most authoritative websites, but like who cares what like USA Today said was the 10 best things? Like
Yeah.
find that local blogger, find that local chef. Where does that barista go for coffee? Where does that chef go to eat after work? Like find those really interesting articles and like, you know, send them to people. Like I would, if I were a travel agent and I knew someone had a certain type of trip in mind or certain destinations or certain lengths or certain times of year or even a specific place, I'd be sending them every day. Like just text them or WhatsApp them or email them like 3 really interesting articles. Now, if you email them, you know, a TripAdvisor top 10, like you're just going to be as irrelevant as TripAdvisor is going to be. Right. But if you're like, hey, this up and coming chef just got a Michelin star, and they actually have a little blog on the side, and this is what they've been writing about like their favorite like breakfast spots or whatever. Like that kind of stuff is cool. And then you could just say like, hey, if you ever see anyone, if you see anything that you want in there, just respond, and I'll add it to, you know, I'll go call and make a reservation or whatever it is. But like that's there's it's a personal touch, you know.
Absolutely. And it's curating that something special. We do a lot of training on how do you break into those luxury markets and what we call comma commissions, like those trips. Like, and here's the thing, how with travel works. A lot of people don't know this is you're either the travel supplier is either going to keep that extra commission or it goes to a travel agent. It doesn't cost the consumer more to use us, right? But when you're curating something special and trying to break into those luxury markets, being able to get those out of the way experiences. I've had people that have built entire brands and entire agencies out on crafting hyper curated experiences, exactly what you're talking about. And it's that stuff they can't Google. They don't want that cookie cutter. And travelers, especially, you know, there are people out there like you and I that also have jobs. They love to travel, right? But they want something special for that 1 or 2 weeks that they're going to take off during the year. And having that local experience is becoming a huge trend. And it's because it's like real travel, right? It's not like what's in the brochure. The cookie cutter
travel, I like to say travel has become the new white picket fence. The way, you know, maybe like my parents' or grandparents' generation would show off like how they're doing in the world, or like, you know, just try to impress their friends and neighbors, is you buy a bigger house, you buy a nicer car, you get that, you know, new washer and dryer or whatever, you know, whatever people did back in the day. And now it's cooler if you don't have to have a car. You know, it's more sustainable. Like, and the way people still have, and I'm not saying this is a good thing. Like, it comes from like it's just the reality of it. It's like the way people like kind of have that is now their Instagram feed. You know, it's like look where I had dinner, look what I did, and you're never people want to be perceived as interesting, and no one's interesting sitting on a bus tour. You know, and I think the interesting thing is that now it's going to be easier than ever to curate those unique experiences, because all those people that were just like in hot demand and booked every night are now going to be like, please, like, help send me people, you know? And so like, I think you can, you know, pick up the phone and create those unique, you know, easily create experiences that might not exist. And also encourage, like, here's the thing about those unique experiences, like, I think travel agents also have to encourage their travelers, like, especially now as we're like, you know, as people start to travel again, you know, whenever that is, like, you know, in terms of like on a meaningful scale, besides like road trips to a park, is there's going to be that tendency to like cram a lot in that they didn't do. And I would encourage people to say, you know, like, slow down, like, read a book about the place, like read like a fictional novel, or read a biography from some great person in history there. Like, just go walk around, like, make room for serendipity. And you know, it might sound ironic, but I block off people's schedule to say, like, for these 3 hours, just walk until something interesting happens. Like, those are the best experiences. Like, I've never heard of a life-changing or memorable travel story that started with things going as planned.
Right, exactly. That's so true. It's like immersing yourself, and it's the experience, embracing the experience. And I like that, allowing for the flexibility. We always, but there's a lot of clients who be like, I'm going to Europe one time. I need to get every single landmark in. And it's like, but you know what? That hanging out at the bistro in Paris, like just take a beat for a minute. And I think as Americans too, right? We're all like checking boxes and a lot of, that type A type personality when we approach things. But vacation is that time to like reconnect with yourself if you do it right, right? So
yeah, I mean, what is a more authentic experience in Paris? Is like sitting in a park for 4 hours, drinking a bottle of wine with some cheese and a baguette you picked up at the market? Or is it like standing in 17 different lines just to take a picture of, the Mona Lisa with a million other tourists? Like, Rolf Potts, the author of Vagabonding, he was on a live event that we had. And yeah, he was commenting about how, the average visitor to Paris sees more museums in 1 week than the average Parisian probably sees in a lifetime. And, and I couldn't agree more. And so it's like, I think, and I don't want to knock those things. Like some of those things are in museums because of a reason. Like someone changed the course of history with a painting, or like that stuff is cool. And I would go see it, but I would just put as much focus on all the in-between stuff, not doing everything, not cramming it in. Cause like it's cool to see, but like you don't get a life-changing experience. You don't get a memorable travel story that you're going to tell your friends and family afterwards by doing that. And if you are going to go to a museum, I would say like don't go there the most efficient way. Just like say, okay, I'm going to get there today and I'm just going to wander around until I find it. And all this, and realize that like that walk to the museum is going to be way more important than like anything hanging on the walls of the museum.
On my first trip to Germany, I went on a FAM trip, which in the industry stands for familiarization, which is basically I went on a free trip to learn about Germany, and I won it in a raffle on behalf of the CEO was supposed to go. And anyway, I went in her place, but it ended up being the craziest thing because they gave me a certificate when I got to the hotel, and they're like, oh, you can go to the spa for free, but you have to get your own transportation. So, being like 20 at the time, I was like, I didn't have a lot of extra money. I'm like, I'm just going to take the bus system. So I ended up like taking this bus system, spending the day at this crazy spa, and it was so funny because I had like this bright colored bathing suit on. I walked in and I realized that everybody was like nude. I was like, what is happening right now? I was like, oh my God. Right. So it was the most hilarious story. The ride home, there was a cute little like old lady with a dog in a basket, and she talked to me the whole time. And I was like, she like was having full conversations with me and I didn't understand a word what she was saying. Still to this day, one of my most hilarious travel stories. And it just was because I hopped on a bus and it wasn't on the plan. Right?
And if they would have said, welcome to the hotel, here's our hotel luxury spa, it would have been really nice and relaxing. You probably wouldn't even remember that you had it,
Exactly. But here we are 25 years later. It's crazy. Yeah. I want to talk about one last thing that you hinted at earlier, and I think is really key because we train this on a regular basis. When we talk about travel agents and the travel industry preparing to meet these needs of the new client, yes, the authenticity, yes, the hyper curated, yes, getting your message out in that very human way. The other thing is we need to, the industry, travel agents, for those of you who've been doing this for 10, 20 years, you have to make it cool. You have to make it easy. And that is, I think, where you're an expert in technology. A lot of agencies have had exponential growth because they have embraced technology for the clients that they serve. And some agents don't even know like this stuff exists. So I love, the whole idea of Trip Scout and what you're doing. But what are your thoughts on that? Like, cause as a millennial, like you don't want to sit down in an office for 4 hours and talk about your trip, right? It's a different way that you have to make it cool for them. Does that make sense? What are your thoughts on?
I mean, you're spot on. Like here's the thing you have to realize in this world is that you're either a technology business, technology enabled, technology supported business, or you're just a quickly going to become a relevant business. There is no and I've been saying this for a while, but there is no technology sector.
Yeah.
Everything has technology, everything uses technology. Otherwise, it's just not going to exist. And I mean, obviously with some specific service examples, but that's the number one way to lose credibility is like if a traveler comes in there and their friends were talking about something and then you haven't heard about it, like, how are you going to know then about the coolest restaurant that opens up, you know? And I think so many conversations I've had with travel agents or concierges is they're like stuck in 10 years behind, you know, and they know what was cool 10 years ago. And actually, I would say this, like 10 years ago, travel was easy. 10 years ago, everyone, they were going to New York City. They're going to stay at like a Marriott or a Hilton near Times Square. They're going to go wave at the Statue of Liberty, go on a tour.
See a Broadway show.
Yeah, see a Broadway show. Ask their concierge for a slice of pizza. Where's the best place to get a slice of pizza? They'll go around the corner and they'll get it. Everyone's trip looked the same.
Yeah.
Now look at them look, especially if it's like a millennial or younger, or like, but actually I don't think this is an age thing, because I think I see people that are 60 years old doing this. People are going to Queens and eating like 7 different types of cuisines. They're going to the Bronx. They're going to go look at street art and get coffee in Bushwick in Brooklyn. Like 10 years ago, no one ever heard of Bushwick. No one would dare go there. But like now it's the coolest, trendiest place because people see something nice on their Instagram and they see a bunch of hipsters and they want to check it out. So I think you have to immerse yourself in everything, like new technology that's coming out. You have to immerse yourself with new products, new, like, you know, new trends. And I understand for some people who've been doing this a while, that might seem intimidating, but it's not hard. Like, you know, read an article and you're here, see an article, 5 best new travel apps, just download them all and just play with them. Apps intentionally makes things so that it's easy to get onboarded. And so like, you have to be up to speed on that kind of stuff, or you're just going to lose credibility. Now, if your customer is, you know, super wealthy retired person, maybe they don't care about that as much, but like, but they're starting to, you know what I mean? Like their kids showed them something cool, and you know, like
even my 69-year-old father is like using apps now. Like, 'cause sometimes you can't remember how to open them up, but
yeah, and
so
totally. So you just like, and think about it, like that's fun. Like you love travel, you should be a student of how travel changes, both in destination as well as like in the interwebs of the world. Now you should also be really like aware of all the other things, like over tourism, sustainability. Like there's a lot of things that people thankfully care about now. And so it's not always about, like, here's an interesting tidbit. Hopper did a test with Lufthansa where they said, you know, they gave you a flight and they said, look, for this flight is $20 more, but it has a more direct route. So you will actually save this much in emissions. Would you do it? And actually the majority of people would do that. Now, granted, you're still getting on a flight, so it's like you're like staying for the environment, but like people will make different choices that might not be in their just own self-interest. And I think being aware of that and giving people those kinds of options, and you know, being aware of like what they care about, what's new, like it's so important. And you know, ultimately that's like, and here's the things, like how someone finds something when they're traveling is just as important as what they find.
Yeah.
And so like being aware of that, being part of that conversation, as you mentioned earlier, like supporting them in that kind of research and planning and serendipity, or, you know, all that kind of stuff is really important. So I think you're spot on.
I love it. Yeah, you've given us such great things to think about. And, you know, we work with clients all the time on leveraging things like technology and realizing it used to be like the thing that would set you apart. Now it's the thing that's going to keep you in business. Like, you better get on board. I feel like I know when we coach our clients, we talk a lot about, you know, longevity of your business and people that have had these great travel businesses for years and years. There is some adaptation that's going to be required going into this new world, but all things that are doable, all things that are going to serve your client at a higher level, all things that are going to just help raise your game, I think, as a travel professional. So,
and there's another thing, the one more thing I would add is like there's like this mindset to that's an outdated mindset, is kind of like to keep everything like in. Like, well, if I enable them, will they ever even need me anymore? And that's the thing that like you got to get away from, because and one of the things we realize with content is like no one wants a single source of truth in travel. No. Like they want to read every single blog, read all these different books, like they figure out what they want. It's like you need to be the facilitator of that. You need to share a blog that they wouldn't have heard about, share an app they might not have heard about. You know, if they're going to a place like China, you have to like tell them about WeChat because like you can't get by with it. Like you have to support that, you know, let them create Google Docs and you be shared with them, or let them create, you know, a trip on TripScout, and that way you can see what they're reading and like what they're saving. You just need to realize like you are not the gatekeeper. You are not the treasure chest.
Yeah, it's not about keeping secrets.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, you're the curator and the facilitator and the friend, you know. And I think if you just think of yourself as, what would I do if I wasn't in this business and this was just my best friend or my family member going on a trip, what kind of things would I do for them? And if you do that, like your business is gonna boom.
Yeah, totally. The answer. That's the name of our show, is Bliss to Abundance, because I say my purpose and mission in life is to inspire people to follow their bliss into abundance. If you're leaning into what you love and sharing it in a big way with the world, it's going to come back like hundreds and hundreds fold, right? That's so true in dealing with clients. I love that thought path. And there is that old mindset of, well, if I do this, well, you know, there's a scarcity mindset. It's not a wealth consciousness mindset. So totally. I love that. I'm adopting that. I might steal that for some coaching. So I love it. Guys, I want to tell you about Konrad's links and where you can connect with him. So on Facebook, his Facebook page, you can go to facebook.com /Go Konrad, or Instagram @GoKonrad, and it's Konrad with a K. So let me say that. And then you can go to tripscout.co is the
.com. Website. Or just type in TripScout in the App Store.
It'll come up. Yep. Perfect. Love it. Love it. Love it. And by the way, travel agents, if you want to be best positioned in the industry in this existing COVID and post-COVID world, don't forget to go to careersonvacation.com and find out how we can help you. Wherever you guys in the world, I wish you so much love, so much abundance. I wish you the world. Konrad, if you want to hang out just for a second, I'll chat with you post-show. And guys, I'll see you next week. Go follow Konrad over on his stuff. His Instagram feed is so cool. I mean, 100 countries. You have to go check it out. So I love you guys. I'll see you next week, okay?
Bye.
Hey guys, Cyndi Williams here. If you like that last video, make sure you check out my other content to help you grow and scale your very own travel business. And also, I invite you to travel around the world with me and find out what I'm doing in my portable, profitable, award-winning travel business. Check out the videos.